I stood frozen in my driveway, staring at the white Tesla parked inside my garage, its headlights off but the message blindingly clear. A printed HOA notice sat smugly on the windshield, claiming temporary floral access rights, while my security footage showed Vivian Duval unlocking my garage like she owned the deed. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about flowers, it was about control, and I had just become the next target in a war I never agreed to fight. What would you do if you came home one afternoon to find a stranger's white Tesla Model X parked neatly in your garage, the door wide open to the world, and a printed HOA notice on the windshield declaring it a temporary floral operations access point? I stood motionless on the driveway, bags of groceries in hand, heart pounding in my ears, trying to process what I was seeing. This wasn't just someone parking where they didn't belong. This was a declaration, a power move, a silent message from a woman who believed she had the authority to rewrite the rules. My name is Calvin Reese. I'm 53 years old, a recently retired cybersecurity analyst who spent 2 decades building threat detection systems for federal contractors. And until 3 weeks ago, I thought I'd found the perfect place to enjoy a quiet post-career life. A charming colonial on Lavender Hill Road, tucked just outside the meticulously curated boundaries of Briarwood Bloom, one of those upscale HOA neighborhoods where every rose bush has to be trimmed at precisely the same angle, and mailboxes are inspected like they're sacred relics. I bought my home precisely because it sat beyond their grasp: no HOA dues, no color restrictions, no newsletter editor with too much time on their hands. Just me, the birds, and a weathered front porch, perfect for reading mystery novels with a cup of strong coffee. I moved in on a breezy Saturday morning, greeted by the scent of lilac and the soft rustle of maples lining the street. That night, in a moment of quiet rebellion, I painted the front door a rich lavender, a nod to the street's name, and a splash of personality that made me smile every time I looked at it. The paint hadn't even dried when the first knock came. Vivian Duval, 60 years old, head of the Briarwood Bloom HOA, and the kind of woman who looked like she hadn't smiled for real since the Reagan administration. She wore a pristine beige pantsuit, oversized sunglasses, and a silk scarf that smelled faintly of roses and disapproval. In one hand, she held a wicker basket of scones wrapped in cellophane. In the other, a trifold brochure. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, voice warm but eyes sharp. "We're so delighted to have someone new on Lavender Hill." I thanked her, cautiously accepting the basket. "Just to clarify, though, I'm not actually part of Briarwood Bloom." Her smile froze. "There must be some mistake. This entire street falls under our Floral Aesthetic Preservation District." I raised an eyebrow. "My deed says otherwise." I had my lawyer confirm it. Twice. The warmth drained from her expression like sunlight behind a storm cloud. "Well," she said, "you may want to recheck your paperwork. The previous owners were quite cooperative. They understood the importance of maintaining the integrity of our community's visual brand." She glanced pointedly at my door. Lilac purple is not an approved color for primary entryways. I offered her a polite smile and stepped back inside. It should have ended there. I thought it had, until today. Until I came home from a 20-minute grocery run to find that gleaming Tesla in my garage and a notice on the windshield that read like a bureaucratic fever dream. Per Section 6B of the Briarwood Bloom Emergency Horticultural Access Protocols, the HOA reserves the right to use adjacent non-compliant structures for the preservation of public floral infrastructure. What in the hell did that even mean? I dropped the groceries in the kitchen and pulled up my security feed. There she was, Vivian, walking up my driveway at 10:42 a.m. remote, in hand the same smug expression she wore during our first meeting, still plastered across her face. She opened my garage like it belonged to her, parked her car, adjusted the rearview mirror, and left as casually as if she were borrowing a cup of sugar. That was when I realized the old owners must have never changed the code. My stomach churned. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. And if I'd learned anything from years of identifying security threats, it's that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous. That night, as I installed a new keypad and reset every code and lock on the property, I met Leo Hampton. He was walking his dog, a stout, waddling bulldog named Myrtle, when he stopped at the edge of my driveway. "Saw the Tesla," he said simply. "Welcome to Briarwood Bloom's jurisdictional creep." I looked up. "You live nearby, 3 houses down. Been here 27 years, former civil attorney, retired mostly." I keep a blog on HOA overreach in my spare time. He motioned to my lavender door. She hates that, by the way. Said it throws off the hydrangea palette. I laughed, but he didn't. She's been trying to absorb Lavender Hill into the HOA for the past decade. Started with mailers, then neighborhood parties. When that didn't work, she switched to pressure, code complaints, anonymous fines, parking citations on public roads. Classic encroachment tactics. I told him what happened, showed him the footage. He whistled low. She's getting bold. Normally she doesn't act until month 3. You must have really rattled her, because I painted a door, because you didn't ask permission. He leaned in, lowering his voice. Vivian sees herself as the curator of Briarwood. Her niece Naomi just moved in with her. Works remote for some design firm. That Tesla is hers. You're not just a neighbor now, Mr. Reese. You're a case study. I nodded slowly. Well, I've dealt with invasive systems before. I think I can handle a nosy HOA president. She's not just nosy, Leo said, turning to leave. She's strategic, and she's got a board full of sycophants who'd vote to regulate oxygen if it meant keeping the begonias balanced. 3 days later, Vivian returned with Naomi in tow. I was in my office when I got the alert garage door open. I clicked into the live feed, and there they were positioning the Tesla back inside like they were claiming a reserved spot. I went outside calmly, phone in hand. Vivian smiled as if we were discussing lawn care. Oh, Calvin, we didn't expect you back so soon. With the neighborhood planting event this weekend, we needed overflow parking. Your garage was the most geometrically convenient. You don't live here, I said flatly. You have no authority to use this space. Actually, she said, pulling a printed page from her handbag. This is a formal notice from the HOA's Floral Access Committee. It outlines temporary garage usage for adjacent lots during infrastructure staging. Section 3C. I looked at the paper. It was impressively formatted, complete with a fake seal and several italicized references to community floral unity. Vivian, I said, this is trespassing, and I have video of you doing it. Twice. Naomi, who had been taking selfies beside the Tesla, looked up suddenly uncomfortable. Aunt Viv, is this legal? Vivian smiled without turning. Of course, dear. We're protecting the community's flower lines. Calvin's just unfamiliar with our legacy guidelines. I stared at them in disbelief as they closed my garage and walked away, chattering about petunias and potholes like nothing had happened. That night I sat at my desk with 3 screens open, one showing my security feed, another displaying county property boundary maps, and the third a blank Word document titled Incident Log, HOA Interference. I wasn't just dealing with someone obsessed with roses and regulations. I was dealing with a control freak who believed she had the right to override reality with enough clip art and double spacing. But I had something she didn't: time, technology, and a very healthy mistrust of anyone who used the phrase aesthetic continuity with a straight face. The war for Lavender Hill had begun, and I wasn't backing down. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I spent most of it in front of my monitors, flipping between county assessor records, local zoning ordinances, and old HOA meeting minutes Leo had helped me dig up from the public archive. The more I read, the clearer it became. Vivian Duvall's control over Briarwood Bloom wasn't just about clipped hedges and synchronized mailboxes. It was about power. Quiet, soft-gloved, floral-wrapped power. And I had just painted a lavender target on my front door. The next morning, Leo showed up with coffee and something better intel. She's been doing this for years, he said, sliding a manila envelope across my kitchen table. 3 houses before yours. Same pattern. Minor pressure at first, flyers, visits, suggestions. Then the fines, the anonymous complaints, and eventually they sell to someone inside her circle. Then she folds the property into the HOA like it was always meant to be there. I pulled out the documents. Property records, printed screenshots of real estate listings with doctored HOA boundaries, even a scanned letter from someone named Danielle. Who's this? I asked. Leo smiled. Your secret weapon. Danielle Burke. School librarian, lives 2 blocks over. She's on the HOA board, well, technically. Vivian keeps the meetings tight and the minutes tighter. But Danielle's been quietly documenting everything for over 2 years. She wants to talk. That afternoon, I met Danielle at a local coffee shop. She looked nervous, tall, brown-haired, soft-spoken, but there was a steel edge behind her eyes I recognized. It was the look of someone who'd been bullied for too long and was finally ready to punch back. "I've been keeping a blog," she whispered, sliding her tablet across the table. "Password protected, all encrypted. Every time Vivian bypasses a vote, every time she sends a violation notice that doesn't go through proper channels, I document it. The board doesn't even get full financial reports anymore. She says we're trying to streamline operations. What she's really doing is covering her tracks." I scrolled through the entries. Photos of altered maps, one showing my house outside the HOA, and another dated just weeks ago showing it magically absorbed into a newly dubbed floral conservation overlay zone. There were scanned letters of complaint from other neighbors, copies of fines that mysteriously disappeared from public record, and meeting minutes that had been clearly backdated. "She's been forging the landscape of this entire block," I muttered. "Literally and legally. She's obsessed with controlling the flower corridors," Danielle said. "That's what she calls them. The streets you can see from the Briarwood main entrance. She thinks they define the brand of the neighborhood." I exhaled slowly. "And that's why she's after me. Because my lavender door is the wrong shade of welcoming." Danielle leaned in. "You're not the first, but you might be the first with the resources to stop her." A few days passed. Quiet ones. Too quiet. Then on Thursday, I came home to find my front yard a mess. My carefully tended rose bushes hacked back so far it looked like a storm had hit. A yellow slip hung from my mailbox marked "Corrective Maintenance, Emergency Landscaping Compliance." It was signed by someone named G. Duvall. I didn't need to guess the connection. I reviewed my footage. Sure enough, at 9:13 a.m., a landscaping truck pulled up Sunny Bloom Outdoor Services. 3 men jumped out, looked around like they knew something was off, then went to work. The audio from my outdoor mics was damning. Vivian said she spoke with the homeowner, one of them said. "This guy's on the HOA now. Legacy zone inclusion." I called the company and demanded to speak to the owner. A man named Greg Duvall returned my call, Vivian's nephew, it turned out. I kept it civil but firm. "You're going to pay for the damage," I said. "And if you step foot on my property again without signed authorization, I'll file a trespassing complaint." Greg sounded nervous. "Look, I just do the jobs she sends me. I didn't know you do now." The next day I received a letter from the IRS. It requested clarification regarding undeclared rental income associated with temporary residence at your listed property. My jaw clenched. Vivian had submitted a false report claiming I was running an illegal rental out of my garage. It was petty. It was personal. And it crossed a line. I called my attorney. We filed a formal notice of harassment and opened a complaint file. But I knew legal moves would take time. What I needed now was leverage. That night I called Danielle. "It's time to set a trap," I told her. "And I want to catch every petal of it on camera." We came up with a plan. Step 1, public misdirection. I posted a casual update on my social media, nothing dramatic. Just a short message headed to visit my sister in North Carolina this weekend. House is all locked up. Back Monday. I made sure it was public. Made sure I mentioned I'd be gone. Step 2, visible bait. I left a brand new garage remote on a shelf just inside the window. Visible, tempting. Step 3, the cameras. I installed 3 new hidden cameras with overlapping angles, one in the garage, one in the backyard flower bed, and one in the eaves just above the porch. Audio night vision and cloud linked. Step 4, offsite observation. I stayed at Leo's house 2 doors down with a perfect view of my driveway. And then we waited. Friday passed. Nothing. Saturday morning, still nothing. Then at 6:48 p.m., a silver SUV pulled into my driveway. Vivian stepped out, remote in hand. She glanced around, then unlocked the side door and let herself into my garage. Moments later, Naomi's black Tesla followed. They parked side by side. The garage door closed behind them. I hit record. On the live feed, I watched them laugh, arrange bags in the garage, and snap photos like they were at a boutique showroom. The audio was crystal clear. "He's not coming back till Monday," Vivian said confidently. "We've got the space for the whole weekend. Plus, the longer we show use of it, the easier it is to file the auxiliary usage claim." "I still feel weird about this," Naomi replied. "Are you sure this isn't illegal?" Vivian scoffed. "Naomi, he's a tech guy with a martyr complex. He'll rant online, maybe send a letter. But in the end, these homes always fall in line, just like the Tulip House. Remember the Fergusons? We pressured them out in 6 weeks. Once this one's gone, I'm designating the corner as a commemorative garden plot. My pulse raced. She was admitting it. Out loud, clear as day. The next morning they returned, this time with shopping bags. Naomi knocked over my tool cabinet while reaching for a charger. Vivian chuckled. He's not going to miss it. He'll be gone soon. That was it. I had what I needed. The footage, the audio, the motive. I sent everything to my attorney. I emailed a copy to Danielle. And I called Officer Matt Doyle, the same officer who had responded to the first garage complaint. I need you to come by tomorrow at 6 p.m., I said. You'll want to see this unfold for yourself. The trap was set. The petals were about to fall. And this time, Vivian Duvall wasn't going to walk away with just a smug smile and a scented HOA notice. She was about to find out what happens when you push the wrong man too far. Because I wasn't the tulip house. I was the thorn she didn't see coming. I didn't blink the entire ride back to my house. Leo sat beside me in the passenger seat, silent except for the occasional muttered curse as he scrolled through the live security feed on my phone. The screen showed Vivian Duvall and her niece Naomi back in my garage laughing as they reorganized storage bins and casually parked their Teslas like it was some HOA-approved valet lot. The audio picked up Vivian's voice, smug and matter-of-fact. Once he's out, we can petition for legacy zone reclassification. That'll wrap the whole street into bloom. My jaw clenched. That was it. That was the move she'd used on the Fergusons, the Claxtons, and the couple with the tulip house who'd vanished from the neighborhood overnight. But this time she said it on camera. This time she admitted everything. And this time someone was listening. I'd called Officer Matt Doyle an hour earlier. He was already en route when we turned onto Lavender Hill Road at exactly 5:55 p.m. The timing wasn't just luck. It was design. Because if Vivian thought she'd walk out of my garage and back into her HOA kingdom like nothing happened, she was about to realize how quickly her empire of roses could wither. Her silver SUV and Naomi's sleek black Tesla were parked out front, now side by side. They stood just outside the garage with the door open, prepping to leave, unaware they were about to be caught mid-exit. I stepped out of Leo's truck the same moment Officer Doyle's cruiser rolled into my driveway. The lights weren't on, no siren, just a quiet show of authority in perfect timing. Vivian's head whipped around at the sound of the tires. Naomi froze. "Evening, Ms. Duvall," Officer Doyle said as he stepped out. "Back here again, are we?" Vivian's mask cracked for the briefest moment. Then she straightened and smiled like a pageant queen. "Officer Doyle, so nice to see you. We were just vacating. This is part of our temporary community garage utilization. Everything is in line with HOA guidelines." "You mean the HOA you have no jurisdiction over in this property?" I asked, holding up my tablet. "Because this camera feed recorded over the last 72 hours shows you trespassing 6 separate times using a remote you were never authorized to keep and fabricating legal justification using a forged emergency floral access provision." Naomi turned pale. "Wait, what, Naomi?" I said, calm but firm. "You didn't know. I get that. But this woman has been manipulating people for years. You're not the villain here, but you were used to commit a crime." She glanced at Vivian, whose jaw tightened like she'd bitten into a lemon rind. "Mr. Reese is mistaken," Vivian said. "The legacy floral overlay allows temporary usage in times of community infrastructure stress. You'd know that if you attended a single HOA meeting." "I'm not in your HOA," I snapped. "Never have been, never will be. And you knew that before you ever walked into my garage." That's when Danielle Burke appeared, walking briskly up the sidewalk with a folder in one hand and 2 more board members behind her. "Actually, Vivian, he's right. And as of this morning's emergency board vote, you are hereby suspended from your position pending a full financial and procedural audit." Vivian blinked. "Excuse me." "You're done," Danielle said. "We've reviewed the footage, the fabricated boundary maps, the unauthorized landscaping bills, the real estate listing created with stolen photos. This board is no longer under your thumb, and neither is this street." One of the other board members, an older man with a cane, held up a printed county map with the real boundaries clearly marked. "Calvin's house is and always has been outside HOA lines. You knew that. You manipulated people into believing otherwise." Vivian looked like she might explode, but the crowd was already forming. Neighbors peeked out from porches. Others walked over. The Langleys, the previous owners of my home, stepped forward with grim expressions. She pushed us out, Mr. Langley said. Hit us with 10 violations in a month, none of them real. Claimed our garden layout was a hazard to the floral line of sight. We sold just to make it stop. You told me they moved because of family, Naomi whispered to her aunt. You said it was mutual. Vivian's composure finally cracked. This entire neighborhood has fallen apart since we stopped enforcing discipline. Look at these mismatched mailboxes, the unapproved blooms, the ridiculous door colors. She gestured wildly, mascara beginning to run hair frizzing with humidity. This was a community. I built it. I protected its standards. No, I said quietly. You ruled it, like a queen of begonias and bureaucratic bullying. She turned to Officer Doyle, desperate. This is a setup. They're conspiring. I want to file a complaint against him. Against all of them. You can do that, Officer Doyle said calmly. But first I'm issuing you a formal trespassing citation. The rest, including the forged documents, will be submitted to the county prosecutor for review. Vivian staggered back like she'd been slapped. Naomi moved away from her, hands up. I'm done, she said. I didn't sign up for this. She turned to me. I'll pay for the damage to your cabinet. I'm sorry. I nodded. That's all I needed to hear. The crowd began to disperse, some nodding to me in quiet thanks, others shaking their heads in disbelief. But just when I thought it was over, Vivian had one last card to play. At 2:06 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I sat up in bed and checked the camera feed. A tow truck was backing into my driveway. I grabbed my jacket and was out the door in seconds. The truck belonged to Duvall Family Hauling. I didn't need to ask twice. Vivian was standing beside it in a robe and slippers, waving papers in the driver's face. It's a code violation, she was saying. His car is blocking emergency floral vehicle access. Tow it. You're towing my own car off my own property, I barked as I reached them. The driver, a man who looked uncomfortably like Vivian, froze. Ma'am, you didn't say it was private property. I am the HOA, she screamed, clutching the paper like a manifesto. This entire street is under auxiliary inclusion as of this week. Actually, came Danielle's voice again, now flanked by Officer Doyle and half the HOA board who had shown up with coffee and cameras. As of yesterday, you were removed from all HOA leadership. And this tow attempt is both illegal and a new level of ridiculous. You think I care what you people say? Vivian shrieked. Your weeds in my garden. You let him paint his door lavender. It's the name of the street, someone muttered from the sidewalk. Vivian's brother-in-law reluctantly disengaged the tow rig. I'm not getting arrested for a car tow. Viv. And just like that, she broke, screaming about betrayal, about standards, about how no one appreciated all she'd done for them. She accused neighbors of secretly voting against her, of undermining her community plans, of ruining what used to be perfect. By sunrise, she was gone, escorted back to her house by Naomi, red-eyed and muttering. A few days later, a for sale sign appeared in her yard. Her Tesla vanished. Her power wilted. In the weeks that followed, the HOA underwent a full reform. Danielle took interim leadership, posted transparent finances, and made clear that no property outside the true boundary would ever again be targeted. The rose bushes Vivian had butchered in my yard, replanted by volunteers. My lavender door still standing. My garage mine again, except when Leo parks there during hail season. And me, I started a website, a resource hub for homeowners bullied by HOAs gone rogue. Within months, I had thousands of visitor stories pouring in from across the country. Apparently, flower tyrants aren't that rare. But neither is standing your ground, because sometimes justice doesn't come with a gavel or a headline. Sometimes it looks like a lavender door, bold, a little unconventional, but stubborn enough to bloom in the face of everything that says it shouldn't. What started as a simple act of personal expression, a lavender-colored front door, turned into a full-blown battle against manipulation, deceit, and abuse of authority. But through it all, Calvin Reese's story reminds us of a powerful truth. You don't have to be loud to be strong, and you don't have to fight dirty to stand your ground. In neighborhoods across America, homeowners associations can provide structure. But when misused, that same structure can become a weapon. Vivian Duvall's relentless campaign to force Calvin out wasn't about community, it was about control. It was about one person's obsession with power disguised as standards and a system that enabled her until someone finally said no. The lesson here is clear. Know your rights, protect your peace, and never underestimate the power of documentation and determination. Calvin didn't fight back with anger or retaliation. He fought back with facts, footage, and integrity. He stayed calm when provoked, methodical, when targeted, and compassionate, even when others were being cruel. And in the end, that's what brought the truth to light. For those of you listening who may be dealing with similar injustices, whether in your neighborhood, workplace, or even within your own families, remember this: bullies rely on silence. They thrive in shadows. But truth stands up under pressure. When you stand with dignity, you don't just protect yourself, you inspire others to do the same. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Calvin had Leo. He had Danielle. He built a quiet alliance of good people who were tired of seeing the same story play out over and over. Community isn't just about flower beds and mailboxes. It's about having each other's backs when it counts. From everyone here at US Daily Story, thank you for watching and being part of this journey. If you found this story powerful, leave us a comment and share your thoughts or your own experiences. You never know who needs to hear that they're not alone. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we continue uncovering real stories that speak truth, seek justice, and give voice to the everyday heroes among us. Until next time, keep standing tall, stay true to yourself, and never be afraid to paint your door whatever color makes you feel most at home.